Hi guys, welcome back to 28th video tutorial of J2W. So the previous discussion we have like performing CRUD operations using servlets. So these are products page or home page which is allowing adding a product and viewing list of products and deleting a particular product. So all these operations we have done in the previous tutorial. So the, this tutorial we are particularly discussing about very important topic which is about filter. So filters are plays very important role and critical role I can say in terms of any application. So it's like filters are like the pre-processing steps it will perform. Suppose if you're executing any particular servlet, suppose if you have take this particular page, so if you're trying to add any particular product, so before adding that, if you want to perform any operations, or even before that, if you want to perform any operations when the login comes, suppose if this login is coming, so before proceeding this servlet execution, so if you want to perform any operations in between like validations and all, the basic validation, so it's like password, username should be um, characters only, not numbers, and the password should be only characters, not numbers, and all, and or some kind of constraints if you want to do some kind of validation. So for that you can have a filter which actually does those operations, and even if you want to log something to logger files, so you can do it that way. And if you take any application like Facebook or any Google Gmail login or something. So they actually do some kind of encryption and decryption when you're performing any login operations and all. So it's like once you enter your details, and they won't save these details directly into the database. They will actually do some kind of encryption. Once these data is encrypted, and that encrypted data will be stored in the database. So that for security purpose they will do. So those kind of operations will be performed using the filters. We'll see how the filters actually works like. Suppose let's assume this is an computer where a user can enter. So this is the client machine I can say, where user can able to access particular login page or something, and assume this is our server in which we have our servlets and all. So S1, so we have set of servlets here. These S1 and these S2, S3. So there are three servlets available within the server, and whenever user trying to hit the login page servlet, suppose this particular servlet, and we want to perform some operations in between them. Suppose kind of validations I want to do it in between this area. I want to perform some kind of validation stuff. So I want to perform some validations here. That's where the topic comes, like the filter. Kind of, you can name it anything, validation filter, or you can have one more filter named logging filter. So there's no limitation for the filters, number of filters we can add it for accessing one particular servlet. We can add n number of servlets, n number of filters in between the servlets and the client. Suppose these log filter. So likewise, you can have n number of filters. You can have it for accessing one particular servlet, and this particular step is called as pre-processing. So the pre-processing filters are F1 and I can name this one as F1 and F2. So there are two filters I have added for accessing this particular S1 filter, S1 servlet, and those I will be naming as F1 and F2. And we can have n number of filters, as I mentioned. One is validation filter, other one is logging filter. And if you have some kind of encryption or decryption, if you want to do in a different filter, that you can add it later. And likewise, you can have n number of filters for in servlet configuration. And for one particular servlet, you can map it, or globally if you want to suppose the logging filter you have. So if you want to perform the logging filter for all the servlets, so all three servlets, if you want to perform logging servlet, that is also possible. So if you want to specify for only one particular servlet, that is also possible. So when you're declaring your servlet filter configuration, there you can mention like it is specific to one particular servlet, or it is specific to all the servlets. So it depends on the URL pattern you will be giving. That depends on that URL pattern. These filters will be triggered prior to the servlet calls. Let's see what and all the libraries are available for filter API, and what and all classes, major important classes are available. So for developing filter, we have a library called as filter API. So the filter API is from Java X.Servlet package. So within this package, you will be having a set of classes and interfaces for this filter API. The first one is filter interface. So this filter interface will be used for developing your own filter, and you can write your own logic over there, and we can see the methods one by one. And the next interface is filter chain. So these also interface. So this interface is actually used for bypassing the request from one filter to other filter. So if you want to bypass any filter request to, suppose as we have two filters over here, right? Suppose validation filter you have, and we have one more filter called as authentication or encryption filter. So if you have one more filter called F3, which is encryption filter. So if you want to bypass the information from F2 to F3, there you can use the filter chain interface, where with that you can able to bypass a request from one filter to other filter. So the third important interface is filter config. So the filter config is the one which is actually holds the filter related configurations and all. We can see it in practical when we are getting into it. So these are all the major three important interfaces and available within the filter API, which is Java Extract Servlet. Let's see what and all methods are available within one particular filter interface, so that we get to know, like how we saw the servlet methods. The same way we can see how what and all methods are available for developing one particular filter interface if you want to develop on our own. So the methods are like init method, where you can have a filter config as parameter. So these kind of void method, so it doesn't return any value. And these where you can do the initialization of a filter operations. If you want to do any initializations and all that, there you can do it. And the second one is void do filter, so which is similar to our service method in servlet. So this is the heart of the filter method, and this is where our custom code will be executed. And this will take the parameters, like it will take three parameters. The one is HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response and filter chain. So these are do filter method, which will take three parameters and it will execute the custom code. What are the custom code we want to perform, like logging and validation and encryption, decryption. All these operations will be, we have to keep that particular logic within the filter code, do filter code. And the last method, which is void destroy. So destroy method, obviously it will destroy the filter once it is performed its particular operation. So these will be having three important methods within the filter interface, and we'll see what the filter chain interface actually contains. So the filter chain interface will contain only one method, which is called as void do filter, which is about HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response. So that's it. The reason is it is having only two parameters. It is not having any other details like chain and all, because this chain actually does like suppose this F1 is having a chain do filter method, where chain dot do filter, if it is calling the next consequent filter, then it will call like chain dot do filter of the request and response. Suppose if you are having the implementation for suppose if you consider these two are the filters, so which is about F1, or I can say filter 1. I'll name it as validation filter. And if you take the other filter, which is filter 2, which is about encryption and decryption filter, let's assume these two are the filters we have, and our intention is to execute once user clicks on login. Then the first step it has to execute this particular filter first, and once this is done, let me move these two a little bit side so that we can have the whole picture. Suppose client is sending a request from here to the login page. What are the login page we have? Just a client is sending a request from here. So once user clicks on login submit, then the request comes to the filter one, which is the validation filter. Here it will do all kind of validations. So within the do filter method, so within do filter method, what we have request, response, and chain we have. So three parameters we have. Within this, it will perform all the operations like all the validation operations. Validate login details from request object. So once this validation is done, so at the end, once this all the steps of validation is done, at the end what it will do is it will actually bypass the request to the next filter, the consequent filter, which is encryption and decryption filter. The way to do this is it's simply called chain dot do filter of request and so response. Once you make this call, then only this will actually triggers a call to the next filter. If you don't make a call, like then it won't trigger the next filter call. It directly go to the servlet execution. Suppose if you consider these are servlet, which is our login servlet. So before calling these filter actually executing to perform our validations and all. So what will happen is it comes to the first filter, it does all the validations, so everything goes well, there is no problem. And if something goes wrong here itself, we can able to return to the login page itself. So there's no need to navigate to the next filter and go to the servlet code itself. And if some validation failure, then we can directly return this login page to the user saying so and so errors we have. You can mention here like if validation, or I can say of is valid. So if validation got succeed, then only will be returning to forwarding to next filter. Else what we are doing, else will be returning send redirect to login.html. So these are we can perform our operations. So if the validation got succeed, then we can forward the request to the consequent filter. If something got failed, then the request goes to the place where user is holding, and from there it will show you the error saying so and so validation failure, and with that a user can able to modify their is not valid. So in that case, it will the request will bypass to the login.html saying so and so fields are invalid. So don't enter numbers in the username and all. Likewise, they'll mention it. So if that everything goes well, then it will go to the next filter. There it will perform the two filter operations. Do filter again. This do filter will again contains request and response and chain. And here it will perform all kind of encryption decryptions. So it will perform all kind of encryption. So once this operation is done, then saved it. It's not saved. Saved. Okay. So we have the picture here. No problem. So let's see how we can actually declare any filter within web.xml, and how we can configure a filter and how to map to particular filter. So if you want to declare any filter, so as I mentioned, so we have to declare within the web.xml, like how we are declaring the servlet, the same way you have to declare within the web.xml. So we have to declare within web.xml. We'll see how the web.xml looks like. It will have web app and closed web app. So within that, we'll be having the servlet declarations, all the servlets. Suppose your servlet one kind of, I'll just mention in the comments saying all servlets. So declarations. So you can do the filter configuration also in the same location, like how you're configuring the servlet. The same way you can do your own filter configuration, like filter open and close. The one more annotation like filter mapping. So as you've seen, it is actually similar to the servlets, right? Servlet, how we'll have it, servlet and servlet. So like how we'll be having a servlet, like same way we'll be having filter configuration, which is filter and filter mapping. So within the filter, we need to have filter name. So it's almost similar to our servlet implementation, servlet declaration, filter class. Here filter name followed by URL pattern. So these almost similar to our servlet declaration. Instead of servlet, we just mentioned filter. So that's it. And let's go in practical. Like let's create one sample filter with one of the basic servlet. So later we can see the more details about the filter. How can we configure for authentication and all. Later we can see it. And for now, what I'm trying to do, I'll be creating one filter. Let me take this simple for filter. Take this, it's enough. So what I'm trying to do is I'll be creating one filter. So which will trigger before or it's looking like a big egg, right? What this filter will need to trigger when before calling this particular servlet, which is I'll just create a servlet which is our test servlet, or I can say filter test servlet. And this particular filter needs to be triggered whenever I call this particular servlet. So instead of executing the code within the servlet class directly, I just want to execute this particular filter prior to that. Let me go to the Eclipse and let me create a new servlet for that, and there we can have our filter implementations. So I'm just coming to Eclipse. So let me close all these tabs and stop me the server. So I've closed all the tabs. So what I'm doing is, let me create a new servlet. Which I'll name it as my filter servlet, or I can name it as my servlet. So this my servlet will actually behaves. So what I'm doing is I'm just naming this as my servlet, and this one I'll name it like my filter. So the annotation way we can do, as I mentioned, we can declare using the web.xml way, or annotation also we can able to do it. Let me go with the annotation way, which is web servlet, which is from java.x, java.x servlet annotation, and the path I'll be giving my servlet, and here I'll be writing class which is extends http servlet, and here I'll be writing a get method, simply a get method to print some message over the browser, which is do get and the response I'll be making the format as set content type. I want not the length. So content type I'll be setting as text or HTML, and the print writer out is equal to, let me import it, Control Shift O to import this particular class. There's some problem. Now it got imported from IO, and I'm giving response dot get writer, and I'm just printing a message saying out dot print of the message I'll be putting in h2. So you don't need to write HTML and body tags always, and because it's simply servlet and we're not writing proper HTML code over here, you can, even if you put straight text also, it will print in the HTML form. So let me put content saying welcome to my servlet. So that's it. I'll just printing a message saying welcome to my servlet. And now we have to create a filter class where we can do our some kind of logging over there so that we can see whether it is logged or not. So before that, let me print some message saying so in console also we can see called, so my servlet called, and let me create a new class which is my filter. So far we have done with the servlet class. My servlet we have created, and we have implemented the method called doGet, and there we wrote console output as well as the browser output. Both we have written over there. Now we are working on filter. So I have to use some implementation, which is only one implementation we have, which is filter interface. I need to override this, then only I can get all these methods available. So let me extend that filter interface with using implements filter. You can see filter is from Java extract annotation not processing. We need it from Java extract servlet. Let me type it properly. So we have from Java extract servlet. Make sure when you're importing any imports are there, because this filter is there in several packages, have you seen? Like one is Neo package we have, and util logging we have, and image IO we have, and a lot of other packages we have other than Java extract servlet, but we need it from Java extract servlet. Make sure when you're importing it is from Java extract servlet package. So whenever you implement that particular filter interface, then they're asking for implement unimplemented methods, which is the three methods. Let me add unimplemented methods over here. We'll see how it will add it. See, it's adding all three methods, like whatever we discussed over here: init, do filter, and destroy methods. So let me put some code within all the methods. So for me order this properly. Even wherever you have it performs same. Init will execute first, and the destroy will execute last. I don't know why Eclipse is printing giving me the init last and the destroy first. So I'm just printing messages like within init method I'll be writing a message called sysout filter, which is my filter init called. The same way I'll be writing a message for destroy also. My filter destroy method called. So this is the method where we can write our own logic, and there we can see all the details, like whether we need to perform any operations or not, like any kind of validation you want to do, or anything you want to do. Let's you can do it here. And let me, for now, I'll just printing whether this filter is invoked or not. So our intention is whenever we make a call to this particular servlet, we just need to make sure like this filter is triggered or not. If it is triggered, then it is fine. We can put what other code we want over here, either encryption or kind of validation, whatever we want, we can put it over there. There's no problem. So let me try that, and let me print the plain message which is about filter is invoked, and let's do that here, or we can put it in response object itself. So these about request, and these are response, and this is our chain. So chain, what it will do, the chain will do, it will navigate to the next resource. When you do perform the like a chain dot do filter, then it will navigate to the next resource, whatever the resource, whether it can be any other filter or any servlet, whatever you want. Just need to call do filter for within a filter do filter method, chain dot do filter. If you call, it will go to the next resource, whatever the resource it is, either servlet or other filter also. So here what I'm doing is let me print the result in the response object. We'll see how it actually looks like. Before that, let me add a console saying my filter do filter method called. So I'm just adding all the methods, and now what I'm doing is just getting the writer object, print writer out is equal to response dot get writer. So let me import it. So the print writer from java.io, and out dot print of my filter invoked. So the last what you have to do, chain dot do filter of request and response. So what are the request and response you're getting? With that, you can able to pass those request and response to the next resource, what are the resources available. So the resource can be filter or servlet. So in our case, we don't have other filter, we just have one servlet and one filter, so it's directly go to the next servlet. So let me print here. Once the message is, once it is navigated, we'll see how it will respond. Print of filter invoked after. So let me put before here. So I have put sufficient logs and sysouts over here in the filter, and my intention is to, whenever I call this my servlet, I just need to make sure this filter is triggered, and we'll see how methods are functioning. So it has to initialize first, then it has to go the do filter method call, then the do my filter is invoked, and my filter invoked before and my filter invoked after. So both I have given here, and at the end the filter is destroyed. On servlet also we mentioned the logs like sysout of my servlet called. So to call this servlet, let me have so we have a user interface study with us. So let me have one more link over here so that we can make that particular filter class, that particular servlet class, so that the filter will be triggered automatically. For that, what I'm doing is in the login page, because these are home HTML, index.html is our login page. There I'll be adding So before all, let me add our link. So here I'll be adding one link for calling that particular servlet, my servlet. So a h ref equal to, what is the URL for my servlet? It's a my servlet. And put my filter servlet. So I'm done with writing the code. One is just added a anchor link within this home page. What are the home page we have? I just added an anchor link. It will come over here. And once I click on that anchor link, my filter servlet. So the intention is to call to my servlet. And whenever this is calling, before that, it has to call the filter class. So far we have done this. The next step is we have to configure our servlet. So if you just run this program, nothing will happen because the filter you haven't configured anywhere. So we have to make sure, like, we need to configure our filter in web.xml, then only our filter class will be triggered. Let me add web.xml configuration for filters. So let me go to Eclipse, and I need to go for web.xml, which is there in WebInf, and I'll be adding a filter configuration over here. So you can add it in any way, like either way, like it has to be for within the web app. So I'm just adding filter name. The name is, I can give any name. So filter 1 and filter class. The class you have to give with the package name. So the package is Flipkart. You have to mention Flipkart dot my filter. So the fully qualified name you have to give it for the class. And other one is filter mapping. Within the filter mapping, again you need to have the filter name, which is the same name you have to give it, like how we configure for servlet, the same way we have to do it here. And the URL pattern. The URL pattern, what are the servlet we are giving, so the same URL you have to give it, because we are specifying this particular filter belongs to this particular servlet. It's not global. So if it is global, then you can give it simply slash, then it will actually work for all the servlet. Kind of logging filters we have discussed over here, like if it is kind of logging, then it will belongs to all filter, all the servlet. Then in that case you can give slash, and if it is belongs to some particular servlet, then you have to give the servlet URL over here. Then only it will map it to that particular servlet. So that's it for configuring the servlet filters, and now we can see how this actually functions when runtime. So let me run this code. What I've chosen, I need to run in run on server. So the expected is we're expecting one link over here, which is calling my servlet, and if you click on that link, it has to go to this servlet call, and before that it has to execute the filter methods. We can see the console and browser outputs, both we can see it over here. I think it's got page, we got it, and where is the link? Yes, we got the link here. So these actually targeting to my servlet. If you see in the below right here, you can able to see which link it is forwarding. So it is saying localhost Flipkart my servlet. So let me click on it, and let me clear the console first, so we can see all the console output over here within the console. Let me clear this. So our intention is to make a call to a filter my servlet. So it's coming like in UI it is showing before the servlet is involved. What it is showing, it is actually appended my filter invoked, and after the servlet is involved, then it is showing the invoke after. So where we have written this code within our filter code, if you see what we have written, just wrote my filter invoke before this is executed first. So once this is done, our filter is called do filter. With the do filter, this servlet is called, and the servlet to do execution is done, and the servlet is just simply messaging welcome to my servlet. Once this is done, so once this particular operation is done, then later we are printing my filter invoked after, that is also printing after our servlet execution is done. So in here with the console, if you see, so before calling the servlet class, it is calling do filter. This is what we discussed in this diagram. So we need to make a call to the filter before executing the servlet call. That is what it is executed. And init and all will happen when the server is loading, and destroy will happen when the server is shutdowning. So that's how the filter basic functionality is working. So the next tutorial we can discuss about the dynamic handling, like suppose we have this login page, right? What are the login we have? So what I want to do is for this login page, when user clicks on login, then what are the details I'm entering here? I just want to get it in the filter, and if it is, I just want to validate them. Then if it is valid, then only I'll be navigate to the home page. The home page is like our products home. So if it is failed, login failed, then it has to come to this particular login page itself. So if I give some invalid name or something, some kind of validation, I'll do it, and with that we can see how real time actually people are using the filters and all. So these kind of hello world filter example, and this kind of real time how people are using it, that we can discuss in our next tutorial. Thanks guys, thanks for watching.